Welcome to the Journey to Iconic podcast, Season 2. I'm Kirsten, your thinking partner in high stakes leadership moments. This season is about the moments that determine authority, clarity, and impact. When pressure hits, decisions matter, and influence can quietly slip away. Across 12 episodes, we'll break down why leaders react the way they do under pressure, where authority leaks, and how to reclaim clarity and momentum, all without relying on force, perfection, or being liked. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back. Today, we're tackling something that quietly erodes authority, even in highly capable leaders, and that is the impulse to be liked. You've probably experienced this. You make a decision or you state a direction, and almost immediately you feel the reaction in the room. Maybe it's subtle. Maybe it's just a pause or a question or a shift in energy, but internally something happens. Is it a thought like, did I overstep, or do they agree with me? And what's interesting is it's not the decision itself that becomes the issue, it's what happens in you after you've made it. Because in that moment, many leaders don't lose authority because they're wrong. They lose authority because they start adjusting themselves in response to the room. So in this episode, we're going to unpack that dynamic. What's really happening? What is it costing you? And how to hold your position without needing approval to stabilize it. So the spine of today's episode is leaders maintain authority and influence by seeking respect and not approval. So let's start with the pattern, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. A senior leader makes a decision, often one that carries some tension or isn't universally popular. And in that moment, there's an internal reaction. It might be subtle, a flicker of defensiveness, a bit of self-doubt, a need to explain, but it's enough. Because what follows is where authority starts to shift. You begin to take the reactions personally. You start explaining more than necessary. You soften your language, or you leave space where you would normally hold a clear line. And it doesn't feel like a loss of authority in the moment. It feels like you're being reasonable, collaborative, even diplomatic. But underneath that is a different mechanism. What's actually happening is that your internal state is starting to orient around the reactions in the room. So instead of staying anchored in the decision or the principle, you begin calibrating to how it is being received. And that's the moment authority starts to move. Not because of what you said, but because of how you respond to what comes back. So just pause for a second and reflect. Where have you said something clearly and then adjusted yourself once the room responded? Now let's look at what this actually costs, because this is where. Now let's look at what this actually costs, because this is where it becomes visible. When you start adjusting yourself to maintain approval, decisions don't stay clean, they get diluted. When you start adjusting yourself to maintain approval, decisions don't stay clean, they get diluted. Your influence shifts, not toward the outcome you're responsible for, but toward the emotional preferences of the people around you. And internally, something even more important is happening. Your authority starts to collapse. Even if externally you still appear capable, the room begins to recalibrate around you. And here's something subtle on the subtle layer. Even if externally you still appear capable, the room begins to recalibrate around you. And you might start to notice it in small ways. Maybe you over-explain where you wouldn't normally need to. Maybe it looks like hesitation before reinforcing a point. Or you might leave conversations slightly open-ended when they actually needed to be closed. And over time, that has an effect. Short term, you might feel more accepted, but long term, your decisions lose weight. Your team becomes more cautious, stakeholders push even harder, and you carry more stress because you're not just holding the decision anymore, you're holding everyone's reaction to it as well. So let me make this concrete. Imagine a senior leader introducing an operational change. It's necessary, but there's pushback. Initially, she starts to explain more, soften the edges, open up to more consensus. But what happens? The decision weakens. The room senses uncertainty and the momentum drops. Now, look at it differently. Same situation, different internal response. She states the decision, pushback comes, she doesn't collapse into it. She pauses, she listens, but she stays anchored in the principle behind the decision. She might clarify, she might refine based on the information that's being presented, but she doesn't adjust herself to be liked. And the result is then completely different. The room may still challenge and they may go even harder, but they will start to orient around her. And then the decision holds and the outcomes move toward the decision holds and the outcome then moves forward with clarity. So it's not about being direct versus being diplomatic. Some of the most effective leaders are incredibly measured, smooth in how they communicate. But the difference is this: they're not adjusting themselves to gain the approval. They're choosing how to land the message while staying anchored in their position. So when the pressure comes, they don't waver internally. And that is why their authority holds. And that is why their authority holds. Because the real issue isn't about style. It's not about your style. Because the real issue isn't about your style. It's whether you stay anchored or whether you start recalibrating yourself in response to the room. The moment you start doing that, you're no longer leading the room. You are being led by it. So what do we do with all of this? Because this isn't about becoming rigid or dismissive. It's about becoming stable. The first shift is a standard. Prioritize respect over likability. Not in theory, but in the moment where you feel that internal pull to adjust. Then the reorientation. Move from So what do we do with this? Because this is not about becoming rigid or dismissive. It's about becoming stable. The first shift is a standard. We prioritize respect over likability. And this is not in theory. This is in the moment where you feel that internal pull to adjust. Because then comes the reorientation. We move from, I need them to agree with this, to, I'm responsible for holding this position clearly, whether they agree or not. And then practically, there are a few simple moves you can take straight. And then practically, there are a few simple moves that you can take straight into your next interaction. When the pushback comes, pause. Don't fill the space immediately. Let the reaction exist without trying to manage it. If needed, ask a clarifying question. What specifically concerns you about this, for example? That keeps you engaged without collapsing your position. And most importantly, close your loops. If you start a point, finish it. If you get interrupted, come back to it. If something needs anchoring, anchor it. Because authority isn't just in what you say, it's in whether you hold the line of your thinking all the way through. So here's something to take with you this week. Notice one moment where you would normally adjust yourself to be liked and instead hold your position just 10% longer than you normally would. That's where the shift begins. So remember, leaders maintain authority and influence by seeking respect, not approval. And that's the insight to carry with you today. Thanks for listening to this episode of Journey to Iconic podcast. Remember, authority isn't about being liked or moving fast. It's about clarity, presence, and choosing how you respond under pressure. Take one insight from today, test it in your next high-stakes moment, and notice how it shifts the room. If this episode helped you sharpen your leadership, subscribe, share it with a leader who needs it, and leave a quick review so more leaders can access these ideas. We'll see you in the next episode, ready to step into influence that holds even under pressure.